What you willing to give? What if you were in Gaza? What if those were your kids?
Hi, welcome to Superhero Rundown. I'm Crimson, and today we are finally looking at the Wonder Woman movies themselves. That's right, we're talking about Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman.
Now, I had said in my essay, The Problematic Casting of Gal Gadot, that we were looking at the actress and that Palestine needed a voice because as someone who had training with the IDF, it was evident that she stood with Israel.
And not much has changed. What can I say but yikes?
Yes, she has a point that women have been taken as hostages, but the fact that she calls Hamas these rapists, very telling about her time with the IDF and her nationalist indoctrination. Remember, the conflict between Israel and Palestine is still a land war. Anyway, I'm only going to bring up Gal Gadot herself if it is important to the discussion of the films, which is just the one time during Wonder Woman 1984 and the one time about whether Wonder Woman 3 is happening or not.
So let's talk about the Wonder Woman movies starring Gal Gadot and see if we can figure out why these movies aren't exactly good.
In order to see why these movies aren't good, we have to discuss the plot. But I'm not really interested in the nitty-gritty parts of the plot here. I'm more interested in the overarching plot as it relates to how we see the story unfold. Hippolyta, Diana's mother, has Antiope, Diana's aunt, train Diana harder than any Amazon before her because she's the God Killer, a prophecy of the Amazons, though Diana herself doesn't know that. One day, she saves Steve Trevor, and the Amazons defend themselves from the Germans pursuing Steve, but at the cost of losing Antiope. Diana, after learning about Dr. Poison and thinking it's all Ares in her naivete, goes with Steve to the world of men, but her mother cautions her that they don't deserve her, and that if she leaves, she can never come back. Rachel Sandell explains why her naivete is so important to the story. One of her best qualities, her genuineness and honesty, mirror her greatest weakness, her naivete. She believes in the good in humanity, projecting her own morality onto everyone else. She would never hurt another person in the name of baseless war, so she assumes humans wouldn't either. Because of this, Diana reasons that Ares must be behind humanity's descent into violence and bloodshed. Of course, Diana is wrong about the nature of humans. Sometimes humanity shows its dark side, and she must accept that if she is to grow as a person and better understand the outside world that she is exploring for the very first time.
And here I want to highlight that I like the idea of her naivete driving her to find Ares. It's actually one of the only motives in the movie that I like.
Steve, after giving the notebook to the top brass of England, fulfills his promise of taking Diana to the front, and it's here we meet the crew they will be traveling with. I would like to point out that the actors they got for Steve's crew are at least of decent relevance to their characters. Chief's actor is descended from First Nations people in Canada. Charlie's actor is actually Scottish, and Samir's actor is a descendant from Moroccans. Sir Patrick shows up to help them, and we don't know yet that he's Ares, but I'll explain why that's stupid later. Anyway, with Ludendorff, the real villain of the picture, and Dr. Poison, they end up killing the German High Command.
I cannot believe they killed von Hindenburg. Who will hand the German government to Hitler now?
Diana's crew finally makes it to No Man's Land. A woman stops Diana to let her know that the village nearby is being enslaved by Germans. She makes the decision to go over the top, and the sequence is flawless. Slow motion, and she takes all the fire from the Germans. It's what Wonder Woman does, helping the helpless, being the person who can do what others cannot. Zachary Powell explains more about the No Man's Land scene and why it's so good. When she climbs into No Man's Land, the first bullet point of view occurs. The audience hears the shot on the soundtrack first, and the bullet is followed by the camera above and slightly to the side. This shot tracks the bullet as it traverses No Man's Land, only to be blocked by Diana's gauntlet in a shower of glittering sparks, all in slow motion. Then, in the shot that focuses just on Diana's legs running, regular motion is used. She runs while bullets spray the ground at her feet. Bullets kick up dirt and fill the air around her. Thus, she is forced to block the machine guns with her shield. Along the way, the shot-reverse shot is used. And although the shots of the Germans getting on their firing step and loading a mortar seem not to be from any point of view, Diana's reaction to their aim makes it believable that these shots are extensions of her perceptive powers. The British, meanwhile, do what they always do. Let another person do the work, then take all the credit for it. They make it to Veld with the British clearing out the remainder of the German trench. Then the music kicks into high gear, and my god, I wish it was anyone except Gal Gadot.
Don't get me wrong, the sequences, except for the third act, are great, but it leaves a sour taste in your mouth when you know that Gal Gadot is kind of fine with Palestinian children dying because of the nationalism.
Specifically, if you have to kill children as part of a need to kill the enemy, whoever that enemy is, you are in the wrong. America was wrong when they dropped the bombs on Japanese civilians. The Nazis were wrong when they were bombing London during the Blitz, and now Israel and everyone who supports them are wrong as they bomb civilians to kill them and drive them from their homes. Not since just October 7th, but for years. The group infiltrates the new German High Command's party with Ludendorff and Dr. Poison being there. The Germans launch the gas at Veld, which kills everyone. Diana, being immune, finds this out by entering the village herself. After seeing the carnage, she warns Steve to stay away from her and goes to confront Ludendorff. Diana finally kills the villain, but it's not enough. Steve finds her disillusioned as the war is still happening. Steve explains that people aren't always good. Diana then echoes Hippolyta that men don't deserve her, but Steve says maybe everyone is to blame for World War I, and he's not inaccurate. He resolves to go stop the gas transports, but she doesn't go with him, feeling like a failure.
And if the movie had ended with Steve sacrificing himself and Ares just being an illusion or even just a tease, the movie would have actually been great.
But it goes stupid because Sir Patrick reveals he's Ares to Diana. While the boys resolve to go destroy the gas, Ares and Diana have a conversation about men. So hear me out on why this could have been different. This movie would have been so much better if after killing Ludendorff, she sees the crew destroy the gas and decides that people are better. This whole conversation and fight with Ares is stupid. She should be able to just see men are sometimes good, like Steve trying to save the world, and they sometimes suck like Ludendorff. No Ares. Even if you shoehorn him in, you could do it after the crew, or more specifically Steve, saves the world, after she's got her conviction back, and she's like, cool story, bro, and kills Ares. But this whole thing with Ares is pointless to me.
Oh, and the God Killer reveal? You could have had Diana discover that for herself. Don't just, tell her.
Any fucking way. Steve and the gang find Diana going toe-to-toe with Ares, and Steve decides to stop the plane instead of helping her. He asks what they got, and Steve decides to blow up the plane in the air since it will take out 50 square miles no matter what they do. Steve says goodbye to her even if she doesn't hear. Later, it's revealed that he says he loves her, and that Diana can save the world, but he's going to save today.
As for Dr. Poison, you could have had her try to stop Steve in the plane so she blows up too after the crew destroys the lab. You could have had a solid A movie, but you settled for a good 75% and then beefed it at the finish line. Come on!
So Diana kills Ares, and that's done with, I guess. I love David Thewlis, but God, I hate Ares in this movie. That's not Ares. That's at best an underling of Ares. The rest of the crew, Diana and Etta, celebrate the armistice and remember Steve as one of those who gave their lives for the war to end.
And it's a shame, too, because the movie could have been excellent if you had Ares be a specter or a tease. I will die on this hill.
But let's put all that aside and talk about the disaster that is Wonder Woman 1984. Yup, it was a disaster. Let's start with the 1980s. There is an Amazon sequence that's really good, but I'm not going to rehash that specifically because it doesn't really have a lot to do with the movie as a whole. We open on Maxwell Lord.
Life is good, but it can be better.
Who is the main protagonist of the film. Yes, I'm aware that it's a Wonder Woman movie, but that's the problem. If you look at it from Diana's perspective, it has good moments, but she's not really the focus of the movie. I posit that Max Lord is, which is a problem when you call it Wonder Woman 1984. But I digress. The first scene in the movie after the Amazon sequence is pretty great. Wonder Woman stops a robbery at a mall in Virginia, then that's about it until the fight with Cheetah. Don't get me wrong, she does do things, it's just not really driving the story.
Also, you're gonna tell me that this bitch has not moved on from Steve in 65 years? Girl, why not?
We then meet Barbara, who will eventually become Cheetah in this movie. Anyway, Barbara and Diana hang out, and it's endearing, but then the FBI have dropped off the MacGuffin of the film and want Barbara to examine it. Barbara sees Diana save her from a mugger and decides to wish on the Dreamstone, the MacGuffin, asking to be like Diana. The next day, she's hot without glasses and meets Max Lord, who is also after the stone. At the members' gala, Max steals the stone and Diana makes a wish to see Steve again because, again, 65 years.
Whoever said time heals all wounds never thought to tell Diana Prince.
I do want to make one detour here, though. After meeting Barbara, and when Lord returns to the office, he greets his son, Alistair. His entire motivation is to give a better life to his son. Lord is furious when one of his investors pulls out and calls him a con man. He tries to explain it to Alistair, but it doesn't look like his son buys it. But his motivation is at least pure. He wants to be good for his son and let his son have what he couldn't when he was young. Max finally wishes on the Dreamstone to become the Dreamstone itself. Whoops. Max starts making wishes with people, causing chaos and havoc all around the world. Diana confronts Barbara about the stone and finds out that Max took it. Meanwhile, because Diana wished to see Steve, he has come back in a different man's body. And we're all just sort of fine with this? The implications. Nope, now she sees Steve in this guy's body and oh my god, I'm so upset.
They kiss and the consent of this other guy. We're ignoring this? Okay? Not okay?
This is very gross. While the humor here is Steve adjusting to the world of the 1980s, I can't exactly get over the squick of him being in another guy's body. The guy doesn't even have Steve's blue eyes, and they wake up in bed together implying that Diana had sex with this guy's body with no agency. Like, how is this even okay? Vinnie Mancuso expresses the body horror that is occurring here. But Steve does return, inside another man's body. Not a new, fun body crafted from clay, but the literal body of a random Washington, D.C. local who was minding his own goddamn business when a World War I fighter pilot hijacked his body. Instead of reacting with immediate horror at the thought of wearing another person's skin like a sock puppet, Diana and Steve, these two uber-virtuous examples of righteousness and good, just sort of dunk on this random nameless man's apartment and move on, content that Steve's presence means obliterating someone else from existence. Mancuso goes further. That's not even getting into by far the most disturbing element of Steve's return, which is the fact that Steve and Diana almost immediately have sex. It's easy to get swept up in the classic romance vibes that come with a long-lost love returning to life, and the charm of Gadot and Pine make it even easier. But to stop and think about what's actually happening here is not okay. Not just in an classic comic book blockbuster sense, but in legitimately troubling ways the creative team doesn't seem to realize. To hand-wave a person's lack of autonomy in a sexual situation with, "I only see you," is a dangerously lazy explanation, especially in a sequel to a film that was so simultaneously sex-positive and built around a character learning to separate mankind's capacity for evil and mankind's worthiness of being saved. There is a pretty lengthy gap between World War I and 1984, but it's strange that for Diana, the lesson became, if you live alone in a messy apartment, you actually do not matter.
Wait. I live in a messy apartment. Oh no.
Anyway, Steve has apparently accepted that Diana is the god killer now or whatever, and that's glossed over like the guy whose body Steve took over. As a result of the wish, Diana's powers start to drain, so that when she faces Cheetah the first time, Cheetah easily kicks her ass. Okay, so Barbara becomes a badass by beating that drunk that hit on her earlier, who may have sexually assaulted her, though it is not clear. Honestly, he kind of had it coming, but this is framed as her descending into madness or sin because she wants a better life. It's really terribly framed, and when one of her friends comes to ask what she's up to, she tells him to mind his business. Which, honestly, good for her. But I hate that the filmmakers filmed it as a descent into evil or whatever. That's stupid. Danny DiPlacido explains that it makes it feel like she's being punished, or worse. Later, after Barbara has developed superpowers of her own, she encounters the attempted rapist again, and he attempts the same thing. This time, Barbara beats the absolute snot out of him. But Barbara's scene isn't presented the way Diana's violence is. The tone is unquestionably menacing, as though Barbara's actions are meant to be condemned by the viewer. But why? Why is the scene framed as an act of villainy? Is wanting revenge against a man who tried to rape you meant to be a sign of an unpleasant personality? Perhaps the difference stems from Barbara enjoying her act of violence, or at least appearing to. If so, what does that say about a character like Batman, who would gleefully beat the brain juice out of a teenager with a gram of weed in his pocket?
So Diana and Steve go after Max in the Middle East, and in a minute I have to bring up Gal Gadot. I don't want to, but here we fucking are, as promised.
Max is already there and gives the Emir what he wants, his ancestral lands back and to keep all the undesirables out. Max grants his wish, and upon learning that the oil has been sold to the Saudis, takes the Emir's security team instead. Diana goes to confront Max's convoy, and it also seems that Steve has no problem following her around now, even helping her by driving the car. Max tells Diana that he's the Stone now, which is true, but very inconvenient to stop the chaos. But there's a caveat to this scene. The caveat being that there are a few kids playing on the road, and they make this like a Jesus Savior thing, as the kids are clearly Arab, and they did a whole thing on why Gal Gadot isn't actually a good Wonder Woman. It's very distasteful, because she's against Palestine having their own land.
What can I say but yikes?
And why is this a problem? You can't have someone like Gal Gadot embody the strength and wisdom of Wonder Woman if she doesn't do it in real life. I mean, there's a reason why Chris Evans is still Captain America, even though he's dead. In comics, people don't stay dead, unless you don't get a funeral and are named Natasha.
I'm still mad about it. How could you tell?
So, Barbara, Diana, and Steve go to see this guy about the stone. Diana has worked out that all the civilizations who have had it ended catastrophically, and no one knows why. But the Dreamstone is from the god of deception and acts as a monkey's paw. The guy worked it out that you either destroy the stone or give back what was given. Barbara won't give up her wish and leaves. Lord figures out his health sucks because of all the wishes he's been granting. He tries to explain to his son that he should wish for greatness or success, but he wishes for Lord's success. Max goes to see the fucking President of the United States.
I'm also going to gloss over the fact that Diana needs to get over Steve because she brought him back, but he does tell her to let go of him. And I have to admit, I'm siding with the dead guy in the other guy's body at this point.
Lord grants the president's wish and takes the president's authority and power. He also learns about a top-secret project that works like the hypothetical Star Wars program. He realizes he can use that to broadcast to the entire world, but before he can, Diana comes in to try and stop him. But Barbara, now Cheetah, comes to stop Diana and Steve. Max escapes and Cheetah tells Diana she's not giving it up, but asks Diana what it's costing her. The president realizes his mistake, and the Soviets declare war, and people in D.C. prepare for the worst as all hell breaks loose. Steve and Diana go through the crowd, seeing a lot of carnage and chaos. She finally relents, giving in and kissing him one last time before renouncing her wish and getting her powers back to stop Lord and Cheetah.
Quick question. Where the fuck has Wonder Woman been this entire movie? I don't know. But I know where Maxwell Lord is.
Barbara wishes to be an apex predator and becomes an actual cheetah. It's not very clear what she is after the wish, but Max goes on to the TV to greet everyone in the world. He tells them to make a wish for anything they want. In return, he takes their lives and health. We see Alistair wish for Lord to come back to him. Wonder Woman finally comes in to save the day. The soldiers being no match for her, she's finally confronted by Cheetah, but as my roommate pointed out, she looks more like Chitara from Thundercats, which isn't bad, but Cheetah is more than her outward appearance in the comics. She's cunning, intelligent, and a match for Wonder Woman. To have her go out to an electric shock? That's so fucking stupid for a character which is one of Wonder Woman's greatest villains. Duplacito explains that this is the punishment for Barbara's sin. The nastiest element of this story, however, is the fact that Barbara's sin is wishing for a better life for herself. She's overlooked and underappreciated and simply wanted to soak in some of Diana's confidence. But the story warps her character into a monster, suggesting that she just doesn't have the self-restraint to be a superhero, and that wanting to change herself was a problem. This warped sense of morality isn't limited to Wonder Woman. It's embedded into the very concept of superheroism. We finally get the confrontation of Maxwell Lord versus Wonder Woman. Pedro Pascal's megalomania is so great. She realizes you cannot have it all, and you can only have the truth, and she speaks to everyone to tell them to renounce their wishes. And it's kind of patronizing to literally everyone. Eric Kane explains that, yeah, you have it all. Power, beauty, and, a life. So who are you to tell people what to do? Life was pretty darn okay before you started wishing for all this stuff, she intones. You impoverished third world masses should not want more than what you have. You silly terrorists should know that only powerful Western nations and the USSR should have access to nuclear arsenals. No matter that Diana is a demigod with eternal life, beauty, wealth, and superpowers, you puny mortals need to revoke your wishes to save the world.
I agree, to be honest. She should be helping people, not preaching to them. And while you say she is helping, maybe, but she's condescending as she intones, and no one likes being condescended to.
Anyway, the Soviets launch their missiles, and Max finally breaks out of madness to try and find his son. Diana tells Lord to save his son, and he renounces his wish, leaving to find Alistair. Around the world, people renounce their wishes, and the crisis is averted. So, the real hero of 1984 is Maxwell Lord. Max and Alistair reunite, and Max apologizes to him, telling him he's a loser, but he will always love his son. His son tells him that he loves him and doesn't need to be proud because Lord is his dad. We end with Diana running into the guy who Diana's boyfriend's ghost took over. She tells him that he looks great. He probably has years of therapy ahead of him. It's fine, I'm sure. Kelsey Matson explains the significance of Alistair to Max Lord. Of all the things to be said about Maxwell Lord, the best testament to his depth of character is how he genuinely adores his son. Alistair represents the selfless side of Lord's goals. Although this isn't openly stated in the text, once Lord's backstory is revealed, it's obvious that Lord doesn't want his son to live through the same suffering. Pascal's frenzied recklessness is too real to doubt its authenticity. Protecting Alistair, giving his son the safest and most comfortable life possible, is inextricably entwined with Lord's search for the Dreamstone and his decision to become its physical manifestation. He wants Alistair to be proud of his father's name, to want for nothing.
Actually, both these movies take Ares and Cheetah, the two villains everyone thinks of when it comes to Wonder Woman, and makes them worse in some way. And it sucks.
Now, a lot of people are speculating about a Wonder Woman 3, despite the fact that James Gunn, who has taken over the DC film slate, has not hinted at doing one with Gal Gadot, but I do understand the wanting of a Wonder Woman movie.
I wrote my graduate thesis on Wonder Woman, just as the first movie was about to debut. In fact, I defended my thesis to my committee, then went to the movie, and I cried because I saw the No Man's Land scene. And that was Wonder Woman.
But there is little to be desired when the person who plays her doesn't embody her ideals. I believe that Chris Evans is Captain America because he acts like it, on and off camera. He gives to charity. He calls out hypocrisy. He started a nonprofit to inform voters. The things you expect when you think Captain America. Gal Gadot, on the other hand, has been indoctrinated by her nationalism, which tells her that Palestinians and Israelis can't live together. I don't know what the solution is, and I don't pretend to know. But maybe the first step is to not do a war crime, or cover it up, or be okay with it. In an age of social media and where information is available at our fingertips, maybe we should take a minute to consider if the next Wonder Woman does embody the same ideals as Linda Carter did and still does. Because Gal Gadot certainly did not and does not.
Quite frankly, I don't think we owe Gal Gadot a damn thing. She could keep acting, and I'll tolerate her if she's in a movie I want to see, but I'm not going out of my way to find her because she's not Wonder Woman. Because we deserve a better Wonder Woman in a better Wonder Woman movie. Okay, so I just want you guys to know that I firmly believe that you should watch Wonder Woman 1984. However, Maxwell Lord is the main character. If you watch it that way, it's not as bad and it's not a slog. You'll thank me later.